it's monstrous, it's madness, but it's also really illuminating. Because what else are they going to say on the economy? The answer, Clay, is nothing. Because they got their way for 2 years. They spent the money that they wanted to spend. Oh, I know they'd say, oh, it Build Back Better, it wasn't enough money. They spent trillions of dollars without a single Republican vote. That is the reality. And it has resulted in exactly what we all said it would. So they are responsible for the high price of gas, milk, etc. I know that people say, oh, but Putin's price hike and these other. There's always multiple factors in a global market, in any commodities market. That's obviously going to happen. But if you look at the chart of inflation, Joe Biden comes into office, it starts right away.
Down in Georgia, we had the debate between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams on Monday night. Stacey Abrams may well end up losing this race by 10 points. It's not going to be close, in my opinion. And right now, she is just flailing. She has run one of the worst campaigns. Everybody who should get their money back in New York and California who donated it to her. She said that Georgia was the worst state in the nation. She made all those kids wear masks while she sat without wearing a mask. She got the All-Star game pulled out of Atlanta, cost the Braves the ability to honor Hank Aaron over a voting rights bill that she said was Jim Crow 2.0 that has actually led to more votes being cast by the numbers than any midterm primary season recently. First day of early voting in Georgia through the roof, all of these things. And now, Buck, and I know you saw this too, and I want to get you to react to it before we even play the audio. She was on MSNBC this morning, and she said that one cure to inflation was actually abortion. And I'm paraphrasing, but my jaw dropped when I saw it.
I mean, we should let everybody hear it.
Yeah. We
should let everyone hear this one because this is one of those rare times where I actually had to play something back twice because I couldn't believe. Now, the left does actually hold this belief about abortion. It's really important economic maneuver, because kids are expensive. So you just want to abort more children and you'll have more money. I mean, that is, but they usually don't say that out loud. And they usually don't say it out loud in a state like Georgia, maybe New York or California. You don't say this in Georgia a couple of weeks before the election. Effectively, milk is pricey, so go abort some children, everyone. That'll help you. Here is what she said. You can judge for yourself.
You're running for governor of Georgia. I would assume, maybe incorrectly, but while abortion is an issue, it nowhere reaches the level of interest of voters in terms of the cost of gas, food, bread, milk, things like that. What could you do as governor to alleviate the concerns of Georgia voters about those livability, daily, hourly issues that they're confronted with?
But let's be clear. Having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child.
I just want everyone to understand. She is saying the Democrat Party's position on how to alleviate the high price of milk and bread right now is make it easier to abort children and get federal funding for it and codify it, in fact, in federal law, which we know Joe Biden has said that's the first thing he wants to sign as soon as he can. I mean, it's monstrous, it's madness, but it's also really illuminating. Because what else are they going to say on the economy? The answer, Clay, is nothing. Because they got their way for 2 years. They spent the money that they wanted to spend. Oh, I know they'd say, oh, it Build Back Better, it wasn't enough money. They spent trillions of dollars without a single Republican vote. That is the reality. And it has resulted in exactly what we all said it would. So they are responsible for the high price of gas, milk, etc. I know that people say, oh, but Putin's price hike and these other. There's always multiple factors in a global market, in any commodities market. That's obviously going to happen. But if you look at the chart of inflation, Joe Biden comes into office, it starts right away. It's not a coincidence. But Stacey Abrams, Clay, to your point, your earlier point, I think she's going to lose so badly in Georgia at this point that she may not be able to continue to be the fake governor of Georgia anymore. She might lose that job, too.
I think she may have to leave the state of Georgia. I mean this honestly. She is primarily supported not by Georgians, who have now are poised to vote against her twice. And even in 2018, which, let's be clear, was a great year for Democrats. Even in 2018, in the midterm after the Trump election, which is always, let's be honest, typically a bad time for the party in power. It's hard to have a great deal of success after 2 years in the office of the presidency. So she had everything, all the wind behind her back in 2018, and she lost by 50,000 votes. 50,000 votes in Georgia is a fairly significant margin. She refused to admit that she lost. She spent years arguing that she was the real governor of Georgia. The fake governor of Georgia, I think is well said, Buck. 2022, she may lose this race by 10 points. It would not stun me if Brian Kemp goes out and wins 55-45 against her. And will she concede then? I don't even know, Buck. And let me say this, too. The Warnock question. Remember yesterday we played, the Georgians are struggling. Warnock got effectively the same question. You remember yesterday, Buck? Do you remember what his answer was? His answer was, it's the pandemic.
Yes.
Which is not a good answer, but it's better than we just need to have more abortions, which was Stacey Abrams' answer to the same question.
The problem with the economic related answers that they could really give is that anything they say comes back to the central problem, which is too much government spending. And you could also add to that regulations, particularly on the oil and gas industry, canceling the Keystone XL pipeline. Honest analysts, and we'll talk more about energy and where that is in the second hour today, but honest analysts of this will tell you that the oil and gas companies react to what they believe the future regulatory environment will be with drilling now.
Yes.
And Joe Biden going around, he's giving a speech today on this, on the price of gas. You don't get to tell us that fossil fuels are destroying the planet, which is not an exaggeration. Democrats who think that they don't need to spend a lot of time on a psychiatrist's couch, they say this all the time. Barack Obama gave his speech, I think it was at the Coast Guard Academy, where he said climate change is the biggest national security threat facing the United States of America. And that was during the Obama administration. It has only accelerated. The lunacy has only accelerated with these individuals. But you see, because we are suffering the consequences of their crappy decision-making, they can't actually tell us, we're just going to make everything better with what we're doing, because we see what they're doing. And what they're doing is making life more expensive, more difficult. And on the recession point, I mean, Clay, I said this yesterday. Economists are not 100% sure the sun will come up tomorrow. Like, economists are usually 50-50 on, is the sky blue? I don't know. We talked to somebody who's a Nobel laureate who says maybe it's, refraction in the eyeball and you can't tell. And here they are saying effectively 100% certainty of recession next year. Like, the whole country is girding itself, is preparing itself for recession. And they're going to say, we've got the Democrats, we've got more work to do? Yeah, you don't say. You guys don't get to burn down the house and then say, hire me as your general contractor.
Think about how bad, I still can't get over that Stacey Abrams answer. And we made fun of Warnock's answer because it was bad. But at least if you blame the pandemic, you can build on it and say things are getting better. Saying that inflation is bad and so you should have more abortions is such a bad argument. But Buck, it also reinforces, remember, she tried to argue, which is also bonkers. She argued that remember we took the calls on the ultrasound machine? She argued that the ultrasound machine, the 6 weeks, was a right-wing conspiracy by men to try to own women's bodies. And like the fact-check brigade, because she was still at least in the running then, the fact-check brigade, remember, came out and they were like, well, the sonogram they tried to defend what she had said. But this, to me, is emblematic of how desperate she is. The analogy I made to you, Buck, before we came on, as I said, we're kind of in a boxing match where somebody in the corner is being told, hey, if you don't get the knockout, you're going to lose. And that's, to me, where Democrats are right now. They're the boxer who's losing a fight that's just going to start flailing in every direction.
When you throw and miss a haymaker is when you're most likely to get absolutely annihilated. I mean, you see this in street fights too, right? If you miss the initial, if you throw everything you got and you miss that initial connection, you are just wide open. You're off balance. You're wide open.
The counter is devastating. And I think that what the counter now, the opportunity Republicans have is Step back from the crazy, right? Like, don't go down don't hop on the crazy train. Avoid the flailing punches and just step forward tactically and deliver the counterattack. And that's what could turn a red wave into a red tsunami. I really do believe that because the trend lines are all there and they're leaving themselves open to get wiped out.
I don't want to put too much focus on one race, okay? Because we're looking good in Oregon, and we were early on that train. Oregon, amazing Drazen, to our KEX Portland listeners, to our listeners all across the state of Oregon, please get out there. Make this miracle on the West Coast. For the Pacific Northwest, make it happen. But the one, Clay, that for me, just obviously point number one, we're going to take the House. Fine, great, fantastic. We've had the House. We're going to take the House, and that will be a nice change of pace. We haven't had the House. But we've known we were going to take the House for a long time. Senate, take the Senate. That's the next thing we got to do. And then for me, New York State, man. That's what I'm trying to get to. If New York State, this Kathy is going Hochul. Right into the kitchen of the libs and taking their favorite pizza dough and running with it. This is grabbing the roast chicken out of the oven. This is, if we can take the governor's seat in the state of New York, then we know the wave is upon us.
Well, not only that, got a lot of Michiganders listening right now. You know, Tudor Dixon is really surging in Michigan right now against Gretchen Whitmer too. So I mean, you could do a little bit of a hopscotch. There is a world out there with 20 days to go from the election where Democrats lose New York, Michigan, and Oregon. They lose East Coast, they lose Battleground Midwest, and they lose, which is really going to be a shocker to them too, Pacific Northwest. And that is a sign, to me, if that were to happen, not of a red wave, but of a red tsunami. And I think that's where some of the trend lines are suggesting we might be headed, Buck.